Hi, it's Nikki here from Happy Hormones for Life, and today I'm delighted to have the lovely Lisa Snowdon with me. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Nikki. You
Thank you.
look fabulous.
Oh, thank you so much, so do you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know you're a very busy lady. I really wanted to have you on the podcast and in this video because I know you talk a lot about the menopause, and I really, really want the listeners to hear your story really and really hear your wisdom that you've gained from going on this journey even. So tell us a little bit first of all about your story and how you've come to this point.
Gosh, where do I start? It's a long story. And it's been a bit of a long journey. And it's so weird because in hindsight, when I look back now, I know that in my early 40s, that was the start of my hormones going a little bit all over the place. And I know now that my first kind of symptoms were anxiety, depression, those kind of things, sort of like when I was about 42. And I went to the doctor and I was in a right pickle and I was really emotional, very anxious. Things that I would have done just naturally or quite easily became quite daunting. And so the doctor prescribed antidepressants, and I know and at the time I was like, I don't want to take antidepressants. And you know what, they do serve a purpose, and I do absolutely think that if anybody does don't be ashamed if you do need to take antidepressants. That's not what I'm saying. But I just didn't feel that they were right for me at the time. I felt like there was something else going on. And then a couple of years, so then I stayed on them for about 6 months and I sort of slowly came off them. And it kind of worked, I guess. I sort of felt a little bit better. But then it was like then I came off them. And then a couple of years later, I started to develop more symptoms. So it was, weight gain, quite a lot of weight gain, not overnight, but a sort of a gradual weight gain, and more puffy, and lots more water retention, and those kind of symptoms. And then the depression sort of came back a little bit, the anxiety, then I started getting hot sweats and all the sort of traditional symptoms I now know and associate with perimenopause. I also had irregular periods. My cycles really changed quite dramatically. That was another sort of big warning sign, I guess. I'd be in crippling pain where I couldn't get out of bed when I did get my period, and leading up to my period, like almost like nauseous, dizzy. And then my periods were so heavy, like debilitatingly heavy, where I just literally would just be almost, I think it's called flooding, right? Is it called flooding when you just bleed? Quite embarrassingly so. So, you'd be scared to leave the house. So all of those, looking back, it was like a no-brainer. Of course, it's like, well, of course you're going through the perimenopause, but it's almost gradual, and it's not all the time, and so they sort of creep up on you. And so, your periods would be a little bit erratic, and then the next month you might have your periods would be okay, or the next few months, and then you'd have sweats. And then so they're really erratic, and your hormones are kind of bouncing around. And as a woman, that's kind of what you've gotten used to throughout your life, really. Some months are good and some months are bad, and you put up with pain, and you put up with depression, and you put up with feeling not recognizing yourself, and you put up with the bloating. And so there's all these things that just are part and parcel of being a woman and having monthly cycles. So it is really hard to pinpoint, especially when you don't know what's going on. And that word perimenopause had never even kind of featured in my world. I didn't discuss it with friends. You obviously know to talk about periods and puberty and pregnancy and all of that stuff, but not perimenopause or menopause. So it never sort of was on my radar, and I certainly didn't think that that's what I was going through. So that is kind of where I've gotten to now, and why I'm so passionate to talk about it, because I don't want women to not recognize themselves, to go down the wrong path of getting the wrong diagnosis, of getting the wrong treatment, of spending loads of money, and wasting years and years of their lives feeling like crap.
Is that what it felt like to you, that you wasted those years? I mean, you were working as well, weren't you, all through all this?
I think when I look back, there were certain days when I didn't want to go to work, There were certain jobs I turned down because I didn't have the confidence to do them. And then there were jobs that I said yes to that I would lay in bed worrying about for months because of the pressure. And it was almost like I didn't trust myself, because at that point the brain fog started settling in, the anxiety was getting worse. And I used to just doubt myself a lot. And so I think that that's what I mean when I say wasting time, wasting that just wasting moments and worrying about stuff that you don't need to worry about. So yeah, and I just, it's so unnecessary. It doesn't need to be like that. You know, once you start to kind of recognize that that's what's happening, whether you decide to, you know, decide to go down the HRT, the hormone replacement therapy route or not, it's almost like once you kind of get a handle and you can recognize that something's happening, you can make changes. And that's what I want women to know and to be able to implement into their lives.
So what happened? How did you how did you improve your symptoms in the end? Did you try lots of things? Did you go back to your doctor? What happened?
I was having acupuncture, facial acupuncture with this amazing woman called Sarah Braddon, who I love. And it was really her that kind of opened up the realm of possibilities that this is my hormones, most definitely, and it is potentially perimenopause symptoms. But she was the one that sort of recognized that that was what was going on. So I decided to seek help and go and see a hormone specialist.
Wow.
And that was when my bloods were confirmed that yes, I was definitely entering this new phase of my life. So he recommended that, he looked at my bloods and I was very puffy, very, very swollen. I'd put on about 3 stone at this point. I was very emotional. I was really jumpy. And he looked at my bloods and I hadn't had a period for ages, for about 6 or 7 months. And he said, you're definitely perimenopausal and I'm going to prescribe you progesterone cream. So that was the only thing he gave me, was progesterone cream. And at this time, I hadn't done any research. I didn't know that the British Menopause Society existed. I didn't know that there were these two camps, with the body identical and the bioidentical. I didn't know where the bioidentical was made, if it was licensed or registered, which obviously now I've since found out that it's not. But it did work for a while. So my periods came back. I kind of started to lose the puffiness. I started to lose weight. I started to feel more like myself. Now, what I've also learned is that this stage in our lives is a bit of a moving target for us women. It's just, there's not one size fits all. There's not like, here you go, here's your cream, you're sorted for the rest of your life. Things change. So then eventually my hormones started going like, okay, this isn't enough. So I started getting hot sweats again. I started getting night sweats. The night sweats were awful. These flushes at night. You know, the bed would be soaking wet and then I'd be dripping and then I'd be shivering. And it was like this start all through the night, this like sweats and shivers and sweats and shivers. So my sleep was like hugely impacted. In the morning, I felt like absolute death. Then I'd be having coffee to try and wake myself up. Then the coffee would make me really jittery and anxious. Then I'd have more flushes. And it was like this yo-yo of like, I'm going crazy.
Never ending nightmare.
Yeah, I was just like, and then, you know, my partner would want to cuddle me in the night. And I'd be like, get off me. And the covers would come off and it was all very dramatic. So cut a long story short, saw another doctor. He was of a similar kind of vein, bioidentical hormones. And then that wasn't working for me. So I ended up going with Naomi and we have switched to body identical, which is much cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's been working a treat.
Now you obviously are, you know, obviously HRT has been a massive help to you, as it has to me as well. I take body identical HRT as well, because my journey changed just like yours. Mine started in my early 40s and then in my early 50s started to come back with a vengeance. So I needed that extra help, if you like. And my mum has osteoporosis too, so I've got to be very careful with that. But for some people, HRT isn't an option. And I know you do way more than HRT in your life to help your health, to help you feel better. Because I know you do a self-care Sunday on a Sunday on your Instagram account, and you talk about lots of different alternative therapies that I know that, you know, you've done your research on. So Could you just tell us what kind of things that you've tried have made the biggest difference to you, as well as the HRT?
The biggest shift in my energy and my mood comes from my breath work. So doing just even 10 minutes of just sitting down, even going for a walk. If you're not into sort of just sitting there and breathing, like going outside in nature and just doing a walk where your phone's tucked away and you're focused on your breathing, you're trying to clear your head of everything else, and you're just focused on the breath going in and the breath going out. Now there's loads of different breath work patterns you can do. There's box breathing, there's different things like that, but having a daily practice of breath, it just helps to calm the nervous system, it helps to clear the mind, it helps to kind of, feels like it lowers your blood pressure, and it can really calm the system, so we're not on that fight or flight all the time, that really reactive, really responsive, really jumpy. It needs to be more that rest and restorative, that sort of parasympathetic nervous system, the peace system. So it helps to switch off all of those high level anxiety, reactive emotions, and it just helps to calm everything down. So I would definitely say that something like that for everybody daily to do, and you will notice it. And I know that some people will be like, I'm just not going to sit there and breathe for 5 minutes, it's just not, I just don't have time. But honestly, it clears up so much space in your head. And if you are freaking out, breathing really shallowly, it's going to have a big impact on how your mind feels, and you'll be able to tackle things, you'll be able to process things, you'll be able to just test yourself. Like if you're feeling really anxious, just take yourself away for 5-10 minutes and just concentrate on your breathing, and then come back to whatever you were doing, and I promise you'll have more clarity, you'll just be more aware of how to tackle any issues, problems, worries, concerns. So that's hugely important. I think movement, exercise really helps us as well. It's medicine for me. It boosts the serotonin levels, it releases all those feel good endorphins. Even if you just go for a brisk walk, good food, nutrition, staying away from caffeine, because that does kind of increase anxiety. I mean, don't stay away from it, but maybe just limit it to one a day. Lots of water, lots of hydration, and I think there's lots of herbs you can take. I mean, some people who are really gung-ho about HRT are like, oh, things like ashwagandha and maca and red clover and things like that aren't going to do anything, but they did actually help me a little bit to alleviate the symptoms. Again, everybody's different. I quite liked sage pills. They help to sort of take down the sweats a bit. Sage tea, things like that you can do. And just having a nice ritual at night, just to sort of wind down and slow everything down, because obviously sleep is hugely important, and that is massively affected and impacted when we're going through these hormonal changes. So, bath before bed, a shower before bed, pillow sprays, like I said before, CBD oils I find hugely helpful, a sleepy nighttime tea, and maybe a journal by your bed, so you can write down any worries or fears or anything that comes to you. Again, in the night, if you wake up, you can jot them down, keep your phone out of the bedroom. All of those things really help me, and I just find them very powerful.
Lisa, you're on the same path as me. I know you've got a lovely, exciting new podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Thank you. So yeah, it's called Get Lifted, and it's quite varied, and there's a little bit of the breath work that I mentioned. I speak to 3 amazing breathwork coaches, and we get some little tips and tricks on how to do that. Then there's one on sleep, and there's one on fasting, and then there's kind of more of the sort of spiritual side of stuff that I like, so crystals and Reiki healing, and then there's stuff on acupuncture and sort of East meets West, and plants, the power of plants. And it's just sort of a really health, wellness, happy podcast that is speaking to lots of brilliant people.
You're amazing. So valuable. Lots of people going to find all sorts of resources and help with that. So thank you so much for bringing that to everybody, and for your time today. It's been amazing to chat with you, and I'm so glad that you came out the other side with a smile on your face and are now spreading the word. So well done for doing that, and thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Nikki. It's been great. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it. Thank you, darling.
Take care.